Okay. We'll get started here in a second. All right. Let me call the closed and regular session meeting of the Beaumont City Council for Tuesday, June 7th, called to order at 5 p.m.
I'll do roll call if you're ready.
Yes, please.
Councilmember Lara?
Here.
Councilmember Santos?
Here.
Councilmember Fenn?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez? I don't see him on Zoom yet. Mayor White?
Here. This meeting will be open to the public and conducted in a virtual format to be inclusive of all participation preferences. Public comment participation is encouraged by emailing any comments to the city clerk's office or by calling in using the phone number provided on the front of the agenda. And do we have any comments at this time?
I have no written comments. Do we have any callers on the line, Olivia?
There are no callers on the line.
Okay, Mr. Pinckney, can you read the items for discussion in closed session, please?
Yes, the council will be meeting in closed session. Item number 1 is conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D2 and/or 3 regarding bid protests related to CIP 2017-2028 West Side Fire Station project. The second item is conference with legal counsel regarding pending litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1, and that involves one case, City of Beaumont versus Norton Rose.
Okay, at that time, we'll go ahead and go into closed session. We're going to wait about 10 minutes for Leo to
Huh? Oh, yeah, that's going to speak on general, okay.
Call this meeting back to order. Finish up our closed session at 6:04. Mr. Pinckney, can you report out of closed session?
Yes, the council met in closed session. Item number 1 was conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D2 and/or 3 regarding bid protests related to CIP 2017-028 West Side Fire Station project. There was no reportable action taken in closed session. And item number 2, conference with legal counsel regarding pending litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1. And that's one case, City of Beaumont versus Norton Rose. There was no reportable action taken in closed session on that item.
Okay, thank you. And we'll now reconvene the meeting into open session. I'll call this meeting to order at 6:04. And can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Lara,
Here.
Councilmember Santos. Here. Councilmember Finn,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez.
Mayor Pro Tem is out tonight. He
Okay.
was, just for the record, he was in remote on the closed session
Okay,
items.
thank you. And Mayor White.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum.
Okay, and Mr. Lara, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I will, sir. Thank you. Please stand. Place your right hand over your heart. Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We'll move on to announcements, recognition, proclamations. And today we have a recognition of National Day of Remembrance proclamation. Do I have that?
You're supposed to, but if you want to keep going, I'll get it for you.
Yes, I do not have that.
Oh.
Okay, thank you. This is a proclamation, National Day of Remembrance of the 78th anniversary of D-Day. Whereas June 6, 2022 marks the 78th anniversary of the D-Day landings and the Battle of Normandy, as well as the beginning of World War II in Europe. And whereas General Dwight D. Eisenhower issued a message to the Allied Expeditionary Forces, the eyes of the world are upon you, the hopes and prayers of liberty-loving people everywhere march with you. We will accept nothing less than full victory. And whereas on D-Day, an estimated 150,000 American, British, and Canadian forces landed on 5 beaches along a 50-mile stretch of heavily fortified coast of France's Normandy region, resulting in one of the largest amphibious military assaults in history. And whereas our soldiers showed courage, dedication, compassion, and self-sacrifice as they fought to bring freedom to the world and in the Holocaust. And whereas more than 400,000 Americans gave their lives in the service of their country during World War II, with thousands of casualties on D-Day alone. And whereas the story of America will forever include the valor and sacrifice of the fearless servicemen who took those beaches in Northwest France on June 6, 1944. And now therefore it be proclaimed, the City of Beaumont does hereby proclaim June 6, 2022 as a National Day of Remembrance of the 78th anniversary of D-Day. Thank you. And now we'll move on to the public comment period. Any one person may address the city council on any matter not on this agenda. There is a 3-minute time limit on public comments. There will be no sharing or passing of time to another person. State law prohibits the city council from discussing or taking actions brought up by your comments. This meeting will be open to the public and conducted in a virtual format to be inclusive of all participation preferences. Public comment participation is encouraged by emailing any comments to the city clerk's office or by calling in using the phone number provided on the front of the agenda. Anyone in person wishing to speak can do so by filling out a form at the back of the room and handing it to a staff member. And do we have any public comments?
Yes, we do. Our first speaker is Boyd. Renee Boyd.
Renee, hold on one second. We need to get the mic turned on. There you go.
Test 1, 2.
Yep, we got it.
Good evening. My name is Renee Boyd, and I'm a resident at Liberty Village here in Beaumont on Illinois Avenue. And I'm here today. I met most of you at the Veterans Day Parade, and you had discussed the committee that was being formed for helping residents or helping veterans in the Beaumont area. And so we were just here to see if we could get some assistance. Our flag has been down for over a year, and actually we had called today and spoken, I guess, with Nicole, and she referred us to a lady by the name of Anita, which came out today, and said that she would look into finding some help with us to get our flag put back up. We do have 37 veteran families that live there, so, and another thing, we wanted to know if, with COVID and all of the things that are going on, if we could have a code inspector to come out and just, inspect our building there, because we do have some issues and some concerns with some different violations and things on that particular property. And we were also wondering if we could get some type of police blotter or record of calls to Liberty Village by the Beaumont Police Department, because we have, a lot of the veterans there have mental issues, and we were told that the police department, that's not really their job to come out and counsel, but if they're called, they do come out and respond. So we've been contacted the owner and the property management, and we've asked them to hire a private security company, but they don't see right now, I guess, the need. But if we could have some type of record of how many times the police department is called to that particular property for non-emergency matters, like people trespassing or noise violations and things like that, then we would be very grateful if we could get some type of record, and then we could present that to them so that they could, follow up with security service to be there at that facility. And also, when we first moved into the building 3 years ago, I guess it's been there 4 years now, the city had a grant or some different organizations that were able to help with the different things that the veterans need at the facility. So we were just wondering if the new committee that you guys have, what the, what they're able to do, or if there's an advocate or whatever that could help us at Liberty Village. And so that's my comment.
Thank you, Ms. Boyd.
Thank you.
Is your contact information on your,
Yes, sir, it is.
okay, and Ms. Gibbs, could we have someone contact Ms. Boyd?
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, Dr.
thank you.
Next speaker, Robert Boyd.
Good evening, everyone. She pretty much went over a lot of the things that, the two things that I wanted to ask for assistance on, primarily the security. The only thing that she didn't have time to mention is that in Liberty Village, we have had a couple of situations where the manager was assaulted and because of lack of security, and then some people that were upset about being evicted. They had climbed the gate and were up at her apartment door waiting for her to come out. Our new manager, she's afraid to be in the office by herself. And she keeps the door locked when she's in there. And the primary reason is because we keep getting told that security, as far as having someone on the property doing like at least dusk to dawn, is not in the budget. And it which strikes the question of, okay, does someone have to be hurt? Which almost happened twice. And there is a police report on that. That's why also why she's asking for the blotter. And that's primarily, since she already went over most of it, that's all I had to add to it.
Thank you, Mr. Boyd.
Our next speaker, Kevin Walton.
Mayor, members of the council, Kevin Walton, San Gregorio Pass Water Agency. I'm a director for our Division 3, serving the south central part of the area, which is Banning and Beaumont. I had the opportunity to be with the Beaumont Cherry Valley Water District at the booth at the Cherry Festival. We had a prepared message that we thought would be apropos for this time, but what we discovered pretty quickly is that the majority of the people that came to the booth that were inquiring were mostly concerned about the water situation that we're facing, especially with the new announcement from the state and the Metropolitan Water District and their situation in LA. So rapidly we changed the message. We wanted to try to bring some confidence back into people that we don't live in Los Angeles. Our basins are being actively and competently being managed, and we're okay. Now, does that mean that we don't have a crisis, on our hands potentially? We'll see. Time will tell. But for today, we're doing okay. We do need to be conserving water and look at alternatives ahead. And the Pass Agency is looking at a number of programs and things to help with that. And much of you, are aware of those programs, and we can ask your continued support on that. But again, we're doing fine. Any questions?
Nope. Thank you,
Thanks.
Mr. Walton.
Next speaker, Nancy Hall.
Darn, I have questions from him, but I'll catch him later. Okay, so I brought some things yesterday that you got in your stuff, and you probably wondered, why did I get this? Well, I'm
Ms.
gonna
Hall,
go,
could you just pull the microphone down? There you go. Thank you.
okay.
Perfect.
It looks like a microphone with a shower cap.
You're right.
That's what it is.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about learned behavior, building trust, and education. And that might sound like a strange topic, but that's the kind of business I'm in. I deal with behavior that has been learned somewhere else that wasn't correct. I have to correct it. I have 5 areas I have to think about to try to make a marriage, to put it together, decide how I'm going to fix it, and then go back and evaluate the results. So we have a history here. We had bad administration, and we're still recovering from it, such that our community, like on next door and out and about Cherry Valley, Beaumont, people still have a lot of bad attitudes about the city council and what things you approve and not approve. To change that behavior, you have to gather all your facts. So you know what happened in the past, you know what you're trying to do in the future. You know, like the ages, seniors, young people. There's been 7 years now since all of that happened. So we have a lot of learned behavior. We also don't teach civics in school anymore. And another thing that's happened is that a lot of the language has changed. Like, we used to just think warehouse. Now it's an HCW. I saw that on this recent report, the ERR report that I was looking at, and I thought, what the heck is a HCW? And so I had to do some digging to look that up. Hence, some of what you have there that I made copies. I found that report, which you probably already know about, but I thought that I would, in case you didn't, I thought I'd make copies of a couple of pages and give them to you. I learned about the difference in the size trucks and how they're categorized, and also about the different categories for those warehouses. What's a STS? So the next thing I'm going to talk about here is building trust. Is I hope that in all the things that you're learning about this new terminology, that you're going to be finding a way to build trust in the citizens. And some of that is going to be by not selling them out like Banning did with their warehouse. And part of building trust is teaching the rules and then finding ways to correct that or mitigate it, but make it so that the public understands. I know I'm getting to my red button. But I felt this was important. Today, we have the internet, and there's no forgiveness in print. We have word changing, but you have to find a way to educate the public. You're going to have to find a way to go to them. It can't just be in your newsletter that you put out. You're going to have to find a way to go out to the clubs, find a way to get to the parents and educate the youth, because today's society is entitled, and they don't understand how this works. And so in my past experience, I'm just kind of like coming to you and just saying that if you want to gain gain the trust of the public, you're going to have to go to them. You can't expect them to read an announcement in the paper that is on the meeting agenda and know what that means. They don't know what an NOP is. They don't know what a negative deck is. They don't know what it means, what a mitigation is. What they say is, the council doesn't care about us. They have deep pockets. They only want to do what they want to do. They don't care about the public. That's all. Thank you.
Ms. Hall.
Last in-person comment, David Valdivia.
Hello, Council. I know you guys have items on the agenda for Rangel Park. I just wanted to, I've been talking to Doug. The park looks great, by the way. And our tournament's still going on at the 8th, talking to him yesterday. Just want to know what our backup plan is if Edison doesn't get the power there.
Okay. As you know, we can't respond. If you do wait till the Rangel item, we do have an item on Rangel, right? We could respond to you then, but we can't respond right now to public
Okay.
comments.
Yeah, I saw those things on there and I thought they were just about the lights, approving the lights and stuff, so, all right, I'll wait for that.
Okay.
All right.
Sorry about that.
All right.
Okay, Olivia, any comments by phone?
No, there are no callers on the line.
Thank you. That's all the public comments, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So we'll now move to the consent calendar. Our items on the consent calendar are taken as one action item unless an item is pulled for further discussion here or at the end of action items. Approval of all ordinances and resolutions to be read by title only. Mr. Melman, do you know if we have any discussion items for discussion on items 2 through 11?
No.
We do not,
Olivia, we have no public comment on the consent calendar?
No, we do not.
okay.
Thank you.
Council, is there any items that you would like to pull for more clarification or discussion? I'll take a motion for the consent calendar, please.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve items 2 through 11 on the consent calendar.
I'll second.
A roll call, please.
Councilmember Lara,
Yes.
Councilmember Santos,
Aye.
Councilmember Finn,
Yes.
Mayor White.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. Item number 12.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. At the last meeting, under City Manager's report, I discussed the Riverside County's Good Neighbor Policy, and at that time, was directed to bring an item back. Staff has drafted a letter that we recommend be sent to the County Board of Supervisors. We recommend that all 5 council members sign that as a show of unification, that all council members are behind it. There were a couple language items cited in the letter that we found in the staff report of the Gateway, also known as Shop-Off Warehouse in Cherry Valley Boulevard. I've listed those citations in the staff report. They're also listed in the letter. And so at this time, we would like council to discuss the draft letter and then provide direction to staff.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any public comments on item number
We
12?
have two, and I would also like to give a comment if I can.
Okay,
First
let's,
is Mary Daniel.
My name is Mary Daniel, and I would like to commend this city council for voicing its dissatisfaction with Riverside County supervisors about the monstrous eyesore that out there on Cherry Valley Boulevard. However, and I speak from experience here, a simple letter will have minimal effect, if any. My suggestion would be that that letter be read in open session along with pictures of that hideous monstrosity up there on that giant screen. As far as I am concerned, the supervisor should hear and see the extent of the damage that has been done to a pristine area of this county that was supposed to have been protected by Riverside County's own general plan. Regrettably, those protections were trampled underfoot by the person who was elected to represent the people of this valley, and the appalling results are clearly visible from just about everywhere. I think I can see them from where I live. As anyone who lives here knows, the major scenic view that the pass area has are those two majestic mountains on either side. This view shed sets us apart and should have been protected from any project that threatens it. The subject of this draft letter, Gateway, or, sorry. Yeah, that's the way I feel about it,
Ms.
too.
Daniels,
Yeah.
if you go ahead and just push it up out of the way, probably.
Okay. I do have a teacher voice, so.
Okay.
Oh, gosh. Anyway, the subject of this draft letter, the warehouse, of course, was supposed to be barely visible. I went back and looked at that EIR. That's exactly what it says, barely visible from any roadway. This was the promise that the developer made to the people of Cherry Valley in the certified and approved final EIR. Looking at that ugly monstrosity up there on that man-made hill, I think we can see very clearly how well that promise was kept. Warehouse developers can talk a slick spiel about aesthetics, protecting the views, but they really don't care about them once the grading starts. And this is especially true if there is no oversight from the governing body in charge, in this case, Riverside County. Again, I applaud the City Council for taking this stand and writing this letter. It displays a concern for the citizens that you represent and should give them a feeling of confidence that you have their best interest at heart. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Daniels. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Next speaker, Nancy Hall.
It's not on, with Mary, about that. And I just wanted to say, that I really think it's great that you're writing this letter. It was very frustrating and irritating to me to see that the county actually approved that because it gave the open door, thinking it was okay for the property owner across the street to propose a similar type of project. And so I think we just need to remember, and with this and everything else in the future, that you have to set boundaries. And this project that they did over there, and it's so awful every time I go past it. It reminds me of driving past JPL, and all those warehouses along the freeway over there. We don't want it to look this way. And we have a lot of families here and children, and we just don't. They need to do something to protect those viewscapes that they were supposed to do in the beginning. And so they need to fix this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Hall.
Thank you. Olivia, any phone comments?
There are no callers on the line.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Millman, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. As many of you know, I was vice chair of the No Way Gateway Campaign Committee. And when the County Board of Supervisors approved this warehouse, the Gateway Warehouse, the developer made several promises, not just one. One of them you outlined beautifully in the letter. The project will be visually unobtrusive. Now, half of it is what he promised, below ground. The other half reminds me of the man in the high castle. I mean, it just looms over everything. But there are other promises he made. He promised to spend millions of dollars to help the county upgrade the Cherry Valley I-10 interchange. He also promised that any truck that leaves his warehouse would not be allowed to make a left turn and go further up the road toward the Cherry Valley community and the Beaumont High School. They would have to take a right turn and go back to the freeway. The letter you're writing is, and I agree with Nancy, I think we can do more and should do more, but they need to be warned, the Board of Supervisors need to be warned that if he reneges on this promise, what's to stop him from reneging on the others? And it would cost a traffic nightmare, among other things. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Melman. And we still have no comments online?
No comments online?
There are no callers on the line.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So at this point, we'll go ahead and move to council discussion. You know, I'd like to start out by saying, I understand the concern the community has. I personally was very active in my opposition to this project. But my question, and I'd like to hear from Mr. Laura, because I think you're the one driving the letter. My question is, and I think you folks have brought it up too, what will the letter accomplish? Is there something more that we need to do or something different, or is there something that we can do in addition to this? And I have some thoughts on that, but what I'd like to do is give Mr. Lara a chance to explain some of the concerns that he has, and then I'll make some comments at that point, and then open it up to the other two council members. So, Mr. Lara, you're up.
Thank you, Mayor. Elizabeth, thank you for the letter and getting it to this point. I've read the letter multiple times, and the request was made out of frustration, as our two citizens have indicated, and Ms. Hall and Ms. Daniel, it sticks out like a sore thumb. And so it's very frustrating as you drive by, because the promises that were made did not appear that they're being kept. So let me just kind of explain what I'm seeing, and based on my research, what I've discovered, and which brings about the concern that I have, because it doesn't appear as though the county is doing much, if anything, to control or to stop what appears to be neglect for any of the promises that were made. So if you start with the grading permit, which was applied for in August of 2018 and issued in March of 2021. It's about 2 years, 8 months, 2.5 years that this project had gone through the grading process. Before grading permit is submitted, and I'll just explain that I have a background with the County of Riverside at 35 years, 31 which was spent in the building department, the last 10 were spent as the director of building and safety. There's a preliminary soils report that's required to be submitted and reviewed, which gives you, the developer and the grading engineer that prepares a grading plan, an understanding of what soil conditions are on that site. So they proceed to grade the property and build a pad 3 foot above what was actually approved on the grading plan. Their comment is that they ended up with more spoils, or what I call spoils. They're calling, sorry, Mayor, they didn't get the shrinkage or the subsidence that they anticipated. The concern that I have is it's 3 million cubic yards of material that they miscalculated. In my experience, I've never seen a project this size have a miscalculation of 3 million cubic yards. So rather than export the material, which they had an opportunity to do, they went ahead and built the pad up higher than anticipated. The county signed off on it and didn't bring this back to the public for any type of approval or input. So once you get past the grading, then you get into the building portion of it. Well, what they did was the county issued what's called a foundation-only permit. Typically, projects are issued a foundation-only permit because they don't have the approved plans to begin construction that is common or typical with other projects. So they issue a foundation-only permit in July of 2021, and then they go ahead and issue what they call a panel-only. This is a concrete tilt-up, and what they do is once they pour the foundation, they build the panels on top of that slab, and then they lift them up. So they were issued a panel-only permit, again, because the plans were not approved. So the county is being pushed along or allowing this project to be pushed along without any type of approved plan. The actual building permit that second permit for panels only was issued in November of 21. The actual building plans were approved in January of 22, a couple of months later. So this project moves on, and the exterior walls end up being a net 11 foot higher if you include the 3 foot pad increase. That's on building A. Building B is 9 foot increase. So they indicate that the interior clearance had to go from 36 to 40 feet because the industry standard has evolved. And I'm not sure, at least in my opinion and my experience, why you can't anticipate the standard over a 2 or 3 year process that this project is being reviewed and plan checked. So what they intend to do, or the other item that they did was buildings that are this large, so you don't have that amount of excavation, is they'll build them on a slope, and then they'll make them level as they build the building up. So the concrete will slope at a very mild percentage. What they wanted to do here was they said, well, we're not going to do that. I know that's what we said we're going to do, but that's not what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and build it on a flat lot. So what that does is it increases the height on one end, lowers the height on the other so you can make it flat. Typically, commercial buildings in that regard are flat because you're going to do what they call cold storage. And if you do cold storage, you have to have a flat floor. If you're not doing cold storage, then it's not really necessary. But again, they say that's what the building standard has evolved to. So now what we have is a building that's a net 11 foot higher than what they had promised. And the frustration comes in is that these changes are occurring, and the county was aware of the frustration that the community had. When I say community, I mean Banning, Beaumont, Cherry Valley, Calamasa. They knew that this wasn't something that we were willingly accepting. Yet they allow these changes and these promises to be broken in a vacuum without any transparency whatsoever. So I don't know if folks are aware of this, but they want to increase the height of the berm. They also want to add hedges to help hide this. They also want to increase the size of the trees. But again, this is all done in a vacuum. And typically, if a project has gone through a public hearing and the community sees, or the public see what was proposed, then my question to the county is, and my frustration with the county is, then why do you allow these changes, these drastic changes, to occur in a vacuum without letting the public comment on them, without coming out and saying, oh, by the way, this has happened as a part of the construction process. public, what would you like to see, or how, this is what we're going to do to ensure that this building is unobtrusive, kind of like a nuclear silo is unobtrusive. So that is my frustration, and the reason we came about to this letter was because I wanted to go to the county and voice that frustration. Although I am one of 5 council members, I didn't feel it was right for me to go by myself without including the rest of the council to do this, and therefore we came up with the letter. I like the letter, and I've, like I said, when I read it, I like the way that it says we're gonna admonish the board. Then I go back and read it again and say, well, it's just the appropriate approach. It's kind of like typing an email when you're angry and then kind of saving it and going back and looking at it the next day to make sure you don't say anything you shouldn't. So I go back and forth on this. I have written another letter that I'll say kind of rounds off the sharp edges on this. I'll share it with Elizabeth and she can put it out. But that's the reason, and I agree that we need to have this letter read at a board meeting. Will that be enough? I don't know, but the point I want to get across is we're watching this, and these conditions of approval that, and that's one thing I think we need to change on the letter. I don't see that promises have been broken, but I don't see, at least in my research, that conditions have been broken. That's not to say that that's going to happen, but what I want to make sure that occurs is if the county thinks about allowing a condition to go unchecked, they better think twice, because the city is going to make sure that they're aware that this needs to go back to a public hearing. So that's the basis for my frustration. I appreciate your patience in that. If you have questions for me, I'd be more than happy to answer any, but thank you, Mayor, for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Lara. So a lot of things have been said tonight, both by Mr. Lara and by a couple of the speakers here. And, you know, some of my thoughts over this whole process was, you know, we did the best that we could. We did a great job of getting a lot of concessions and mitigations, and we moved forward with that. And at some point, you know, we exhausted all of our ability to protest this or to argue it. And at that point, I've always felt that it's our role as council members then to understand that we now have to find out the best way to live with it and to mitigate it. And so my concern with the letter is that if we submit the letter, which I'm not against doing that, but if we submit the letter, most of you know who've been paying attention with the county, probably not going to accomplish anything. The county is going to it probably would it most likely accomplish some negative impact. And so what I would like to do, we had you brought up, Mr. Melman, you brought up Cherry Valley. Mr. Lara didn't bring that up. But there are concerns that I think this project impacts Beaumont and Cherry Valley more than anybody else involved, including the county, including Banning, Calamasa. And I think that it is our responsibility as a council to provide as much oversight as we can. It's not in the city of Beaumont, so it is a county requirement to follow the oversight and hold the project accountable. And I agree with Mr. Lara that that's not happening. And I voiced my concerns to, every month, the supervisor holds a meeting with the mayors, and it's called the Mayor's Breakfast. And during that time, we talk about issues. And at one a couple months ago, I brought up, Mr. Lara had already presented to me about the height differences. I brought that up to him. I also brought up the issues about, you know, what is the progress, what is the expectations of the interchange on Cherry Valley, and some of the other issues that I had that were unrelated to this project. Mr. Hewitt instructed his staff to provide us a summary of all these projects, and he went to all the different department heads and provided us with an email that was shared with all of the council. And that is a public document, so I have no problem sharing that email with the rest of the community. But here's my thought. I would like to, I don't know if anyone here was at the past Economic Development Alliance meeting, which was about a couple weeks ago. And at that meeting, Mr. Hewitt brought in the head of transportation, the head of planning, and the head of the flood control departments. And at that point, he did a full-on presentation on the projects that are scheduled for this whole area, Banning, Calamasa, Beaumont, all the way out to Morongo. And I would like to ask or to request that our supervisor holds a similar workshop for the city of Beaumont. In other words, bring in the people who are responsible for holding accountability to this project and ask them to come to us and either hold a workshop or come into a council meeting and discuss some of the concerns that Mr. Lara has, as well as some of the other concerns that the community has. There are some good news about money that's coming to temporarily fix the Cherry Valley interchange. Is it enough? I don't know. Is it fulfilling the requirements that the county placed on the developers? I don't know that either. But I think we should give Mr. Hewitt the opportunity to come in and educate, as Ms. Hall was talking about before, educate our community on issues that we have concerns over and what the county is doing to alleviate those concerns. And then also, at the same time, provide an open conversation between the community and the county. So I would propose that what we do is we invite the supervisor to bring a similar group of county leaders to Beaumont and to have a discussion with the community. And then we send the letter afterwards. And the reason I suggest we hold off on the letter, because again, if we take the letter now, we read it in front of the Board of Supervisors, they're gonna go, okay, great, thanks. Assuming you can read it under 5 minutes, they're gonna say thank you, and that's gonna be the end of it. So what I would like to do is to get some of our answers answered, and to make sure that the county understands that even though the project is not in the city of Beaumont, it impacts the city of Beaumont more than anyone else. And therefore, we do want to hold the county accountable, to hold the developer accountable and move the project forward. So I'd like to hear from Mr. Santos and Mr. Finn, and of course, Mr. Lara, if you want to comment on my question. But I think, will the letter be enough? I don't think so. It'll fall on deaf ears. Will Mr. Hewitt accept our invitation to come? I don't know, but I think we should at least give that as an opportunity, because it will help to educate the community better, and it gives him an opportunity to head this off and make sure that he's doing his job, and that his constituents in Beaumont are educated on what's going on there. So I'd love to hear Mr. Santos or Mr. Finn, if either of you'd like to make a comment. Mr. Santos, go ahead.
I'll do that. I mean, that's all well said. I mean, with Mr. Lara and Mr. White in here, and our public in here. And my frustration is, every time I pass and go to going 10 freeway, you could see that right away. And my issue is the transparency of the county, not giving us the chance, just like the mayor described, that we should have a an open forum even now, from now on. I mean, it does. I mean, it does affect us. The impact of this is so totally negative on the views and everything, on seeing our everyday scenery up there. And on the letter, I mean, it's not a the way I read it is not a protest. It is more of we want more answer on the questions we have in here. I think I think it's good to let them read it, and the way we discuss it right now is so fruitful, and they know that we do represent the city of Beaumont, and we're expressing our frustration right now on this. I think, this is a good step that, expressing our frustration right now on that project. And I think this is only the beginning. I mean, because as you said, Mayor, it's not in our jurisdiction, but the thing is, it does impact us, and we don't want to be suffering on this negative impact on us. That's all, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Santos. Mr. Finn.
Yes, thank you. I've got a question. This might be for both staff and Mr. Laura. What is your best judgment or best guesstimate on the individual supervisors knowing the details of this warehouse? Do they just approve it and then staff oversees it from there, and then it does not come back in front of them again?
Typically, in my experience, adjustments like that are taken to a manager or a supervisor and then brought to a board member. Because they want to make sure that any decision that's made at that level is okay with the supervisor.
So they may only bring it to Mr. Hewitt, for example, the supervisor for that district, or to the entire board?
No, it would just be for that district.
Okay. So,
And again, that's just say based on the experience that I've had, but if you also look at the good neighbor policy that the county came up with after this was approved, that policy also references that will be done differently in each district as well. So each supervisor controls, or shouldn't say controls, but is talked to when there's building changes on commercial projects.
okay. And then to modify that question for staff, is there any communication from our staff to their staff to say, hey, we're unhappy with this, or we've seen this as an issue? Is there any staff-to-staff communication on, has there been any, and should there be any?
Yes, there should be, and I don't know that there has been previous to me being appointed, but there definitely should be phone calls made between staff, especially at my level, to directors of departments at the county. At least ask for a meeting, explanation, and then staff also looks to the mayor and other council members to communicate with electeds as well. So it's a
Okay.
joint effort.
All right, so what I would like to propose, and then I want to use Mr. and Mrs. Boyd as an example of, come to the council, tell us what your problems are, identify it to the whole board, and then what we're able to do, just in the meeting, and I know we're limited with the Brown Act that we can't discuss it as a council, but staff is certainly there to take notes and know that they need to report back, because now the council is fully aware of it. So what I'd like to propose is we do a little bit of both. We tell them the letter is coming, we tell them we're going to read it, we inform Mr. Hewitt of what our intentions are, and then when we show up, we ask them to then come back and report to us with those issues that we have addressed. And so I like it when public can get in front of the entire board, whatever board that it may be, so they have their attention. Not to say that I think that there would be any non-progress from Mr. Hewitt, but I've heard it say in politics, hey, I only need 3 votes to pass something along in a 5-member board. I'd like to have the attention of all 5 members when we do so they're aware of it. And then if there's benefits from this long-term, of pointing these items out to them, then perhaps we can help another city with another warehouse and so forth. There's a lot going on in the county with housing construction and warehouses and so forth, and I'd like to see that they're done, per plans. I appreciate the information that Mr. Lara had shared. I see it as an eyesore, but I had no idea that it was built. It was not even built to what it was supposed to. I've heard examples in other cities, Irvine in particular, when they've gone to build a warehouse, they dig down and then build it. And so the top of the building is at the top of the tree levels, and in some cases, you don't even know a warehouse is there. Is that physically possible on that site? It may not have ever been. But if there's things that we can do to make that better, let's be the one to take the message. I don't think we'll have the messenger shot, but I think if we present it in a way that this is what we are doing to represent our constituents, I think it would be better received. I appreciate Mayor's comments about that it may be seen negative, but I think if we handle it properly, our intent is to inform their board. So I'm asking for a little bit of both.
Mr. Lar, did you want to comment before I do?
No, go ahead, I'm
Okay.
still contemplating, sorry.
Okay. To be honest with you, they've already read the letter. We know that. So I don't, again, what is it that we as a council are trying to accomplish? I'm trying to accomplish the accountability and the oversight of the project and make sure that we understand who is accountable for it and that we open that dialogue between our communities. And I think, I thought about the idea of staff on staff, and I think that might be a good solution at some point. But again, I think the opening should be an opportunity for the county to come and address some of our concerns. When I asked for it from the supervisor at the time, he did, within a couple of weeks, provide a full accountability from all the department heads. And again, we all saw that email. And I think that that's the best step to get something accomplished. I just know that if you go in there and you start, throwing bombs, I don't think we're going to accomplish what we need to accomplish. I will, defer to the rest of the council on that. I think I've made my case on that. Mr. Lar?
So what I was hoping to accomplish was to stop the changes from occurring in a vacuum and get the public an opportunity to weigh in on these, whether they're, because the frustration is they go through this 1 year or year and a half process of going through planning and everybody gets to see what it looks like, only to have it at the end saying, okay, well, that's all fine and good, but that's not what we're going to do. Things have changed. The standards have changed. Well, that's baloney, to put it nicely. I don't want these changes to occur in a vacuum. I want there to be communication between our staff and their staff. I want our community to be aware of what's occurring. Why, if these changes are occurring, what are you doing to fix it? We understand we're human and things are going to be, not going to be right. But to do it without any input, because the whole process was a public input process. And now you're taking the public out and you're making these changes behind closed doors, and now the community is stuck with it, and then the developer walks off and he's done. I don't want that to occur. So that's the intent of the letter. That's my goal. If we can get the supervisor to bring county staff here to explain what they're doing to try to fix whatever they can at this point, it's kind of like trying to put toothpaste back in the tube, but at least our community, and when I say community, I mean the Pass area, will have an opportunity to maybe weigh in and say, yeah, we like that idea, no, we don't like that idea, but at least we get that input that we haven't had. And so if we give the supervisor time to do that's fine, but if he doesn't respond and he doesn't do anything, then I want a letter to go, and I want either the mayor or the mayor pro tem to read that in an open session so that they know at least that we're watching them, because right now it doesn't appear as though anybody's watching them. They continue to make these changes, and if it was one or two changes, I could see that, but it's multiple changes, and they're not sticking to anything. And what we need to do is we need to catch this before conditions of approval, when this thing is getting done, start to be broken. And so the sooner we can get something or a commitment from the supervisor, the better. But I don't want to let this drag on any length of time.
So let me make a suggestion, because I think you bring up the idea of the decisions and changes being made in a vacuum. Again, I think the letter will create probably a stronger vacuum at this point. I would like to suggest that we table the letter until August 2nd, give Mr. Hewitt and his staff the opportunity to schedule a workshop. We'll make ourselves available. Or as I said, if he wants to do the presentation in an open council meeting, we can do that. And then we can, you know, if we don't hear from him or he decides not to do it and he does it before August 2nd, then we can respond with a letter to be read at the Board of Supervisors. But again, I would like to get the opportunity, as you said, to open the communication and the discussion between our community and the county. And I think that this would be the best approach. It doesn't stop us from sending the letter. They've already read the letter. They know what the letter says. But it may say something different after giving them the opportunity to come and address our community. And if they decide not to, then the letter may change. If they decide to do it and you know, we open communications, then we can address that again. I'm not asking to put this off. I'm just asking, let's consider a letter on August 2nd. And I think that would mean we give 10 days before that for the Board of Supervisors, or for Mr. Hewitt to respond to us. I think that's plenty of time for us then to prepare our response on August 2nd. And that's my suggestion for direction. This is not a motion. So I need you, the rest of you, to weigh in on direction for staff on this one.
I have a question for Elizabeth.
Okay, sure.
So if we wanted to make sure that this letter was on the August 2nd agenda, when would we need a commitment from the supervisor by? Do you need like 10 days prior? So it'd say we need the supervisor to respond by July 22nd? In order for you to make sure that we get this on August 2nd agenda? I don't want to let time slip.
I would say July 22nd is a good date. The agenda is reviewed on July 27th, and we'd like to have it final by then so that we can post on the 29th. But the 22nd would give staff time to prepare anything necessary in order to get it on the agenda for the following week.
So July 22nd is
A Friday.
about 45 days from now, 48?
It's
30 days, half September, April, June.
it's about 45 days.
About 45 days?
About.
Yeah, I think that it should not be a response by the 22nd. I think it should be either a presentation or a response that we're not going to come and present something by the 22nd.
Okay, and just for clarification, so if Supervisor Hewitt schedules a workshop prior to the 22nd, then the letter would not come back on the August 2nd?
No, the letter, the idea of the letter, I think, should still come back August 2nd, because
Okay.
we don't know what's going to happen in the presentation. We don't know if we're going to need to
Okay.
edit the letter in one way or another.
Okay,
Okay.
so we'll communicate the deadline of July 22nd, if that's okay with council.
That
I'm
works
good
for
with
me.
Okay.
I think that gives sufficient time for response or to set up the workshop. We're still going to send a letter. I would like to get support to have that read out loud so we can get both, I think, if we do this correctly.
Okay.
Councilmember Lara, are you saying the letter goes either way, or it's coming back August 2nd?
A letter will come back August 2nd. What the body of that letter contains will depend on the workshop.
Okay,
But I think we do follow up with a letter. The letter is not something that we're going to decide not to do. We will just, after we, you know, what happens over the next 45 days, we can make a decision as to how we respond.
okay, understood.
Mr. Santos, are you okay with that?
Actually, yeah, you know, we're frustrated right now. I mean, you know, I'm a person that, you know, just like, you know, Mr. Larry here, you know, telling all the details and everything, that's impressive. I will still release this letter and let them know how frustrated we are. We got all our publics in here, and expressing their frustration too. And if we're gonna wait till August, and Mayor, you mentioned already that, they read the letter.
Yes, they have.
So why wait? I mean, why don't we just go ahead and express our frustrations and everything? And I know you said that might read it for only 5 minutes and then put it aside. Maybe not. I mean, because we're spending already an hour in here discussing this. So it means deep in our heart that we're concerned about, what's the future of the city of Beaumont on the impact of that project. That's my thing in here. Reading this letter, I mean, I will just go ahead and send it to them on this. So they know that we're serious on this issue. That's all, Mayor.
Mr. Finn?
I think we should send the letter now.
Okay, have you folks read the letter and you're good with the language of the letter?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then I would like to make a suggestion. I think it will appear, because of the current election, as if I'm doing this as a stunt to embarrass the supervisor. So I would like to recommend that the Mayor Pro Tem is the one to read the letter, if that's what you're saying. When you say send the letter, do you mean mail it? Or do you mean actually have someone go and read it
Well,
at
we
the
could-
voters? You know they already have, they've read the letter.
Yeah,
And they
I
understand
mean,
their
that would be
frustration.
nice and that would be nice, signed and sealed and delivered.
Okay, so at this point, we do that, and now we have no carrot to get the community meeting to be held. You okay with that?
Not that, I mean, you never know how they're gonna respond on this too, Mayor. And if they do, they've been listening, I mean, right now, and I know where they're at, I mean, guys, I mean, you're welcome to respond on this. I know you're very positive, individuals in there who's listening right now, and respond as soon as possible on this. I mean, I like to have a, heart-to-heart talk with our staff and their staff on this. And, especially addressing Mr. Lara's, concern on this. I like that. I mean,
So now do we then request a community workshop with them?
Yeah, why not?
Okay.
Yeah. Why not?
All right.
I mean, send the letter and then I still, work on that.
Okay, the rest of you good with that?
Mr. Mayor? So kind of back to my suggestion is, I think it should be read to them. And question first to you. When you say that you believe they've read the letter, are you referring to Mr. Hewitt only or the entire board?
I know that this is not something that the entire board would not have read or be aware of at this point.
Okay.
Because we're not, if you read the letter, we're not admonishing Mr. Hewitt, we're admonishing the entire board.
Right.
And I just think that there's a time for that, and I think that we do not get the community response that we need, and I believe that we will be in the vacuum that Mr. Lara is concerned about. So that's why I think it's better that we try to get a community meeting with our supervisor before we burn our bridges.
I'm still calling it in the middle of the road, where I'd still like the letter to be read, but when we read the letter, we invite them to come and present and make that invitation in front of the whole board. We can
Okay.
we can say it in a friendly tone. We've all seen people show up. It's how they deliver their message can mean a lot.
Okay,
And I
so-
think if we present it to say, our constituents are upset.
So are you comfortable with my recommendation that the Mayor Pro Tem, if he's comfortable?
Sir, absolutely.
Okay.
And I don't want any wrong thinking. And I was going to recommend, because Mr. Martinez is not here, if he happens to be not available, then I would volunteer to go and deliver that letter if he's unavailable. And I certainly don't think it would even be appropriate, and I agree with your statement, that it would be misconstrued if you were the one to show up to read that letter.
Agreed. Okay.
I have, I'm sorry, one suggestion. If we could, and I hate to do this, move this item to later, if you wouldn't mind printing off the revisions that I had suggested, that way council will have an opportunity to read it. And then we could come back and, I just want to give you an opportunity to look, because you're talking about now, when we go there it depends on how you present it, right? The letter or the statement. So this one that is, still gets the same point across. I just think it shows that maybe we're a little bit more willing to work with the county supervisor and it might open up the door to bring them here. Because in it, I do mention the fact that we stand willing and ready to work with them.
And Mayor, if I may, in light of Councilmember Finn's comments about middle of the road, I would recommend that we look at Councilmember Lara's suggested language. It's not as bold. It still gets the message across. And I think that would satisfy what Councilmember Finn is saying about middle of the road.
Okay, and I think it should be adjusted also to welcome them to come here and have the discussion that I think our community needs.
Mayor, that's my point.
But let me make a suggestion. Mr. Pinckney, in the past, when we've had a letter that we've given direction on how the letter is to be designed and written, we were able to do that off, after the council meeting. In other words, Mr. Lara can work with the city manager, design and draft the letter, and then share it with the rest of the council and get direction on it that way. Do you see any problem doing it that way?
No, I don't think it's a problem because the subject matter isn't going to really change. And we've addressed that at great lengths tonight. You're just going to change some of the minor modifications.
And I think that the rest of the council has confidence in Mr. Lara and Ms. Gibbs in putting across what they've heard here tonight.
And when Christina gets back, we can share those changes.
Okay, great. Any other comments? Can we move on? Okay, we'll move on to item number 13, Bond Accountability Information Document, Staff Report. Jennifer Eustachian?
Lisa Leach is our Assistant Director of Finance, and she is going to step in for Jennifer. Jennifer's at a conference right now.
Okay, Staff Report, Lisa Leach.
Information document. Is that better?
Yeah.
Try not to set it off too. The Finance and Audit Committee was tasked to create a subcommittee to evaluate bond accountability. A subcommittee was created and has completed an information document, and you can find that on page 453 of this packet. The document can be used by anyone to determine the process for making debt service payments, continued disclosure reporting, and management reporting. So the recommended action for council is that you review the document and provide guidance to the Finance and Audit Committee on the next steps. If you like the document, if you want anything added to the document or changed.
Okay, and do we have any public comments on this item?
Olivia, do we have any comments?
There are no callers on the line.
No comment.
And comments from council, discussion? Mr. Lara?
Just very quickly, I thought this was well done. I appreciate the effort that was put into this by the Finance Committee. I'm good with it as it is. I think this may be a document that is, we'll call a living document, so changes may be made to.
Yes.
As we move along, but I think this is a great start, and I
Okay.
appreciate the effort that was put into it. And if there are no other questions, I'd make a motion to approve, but.
Actually, we're looking for guidance
Oh, sorry.
on what,
Yes.
provide guidance to the Finance and Audit Committee on the next steps. So did you have any recommended next steps on this? What is it that you need next on this?
We just need to know if there's anything else you want added to this document, or does it look good and,
And
And
can
we
we,
can-
can we publish it?
yes.
Mr. Santos?
No, just a quick comment on this. I did review this. I mean, you did pretty good, excellent job, you and Jennifer on this. I mean, you know, I agree with this. I mean, usually in those numbers, you could stumble or see it right away, but this one is really well done.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Santos, are you okay if we go ahead and move forward with this document? I'm sorry, Mr. Finn.
Yes, and I think that, that we can probably just give the feedback to that subcommittee of, hey, you mission accomplished, well done, and then if something needs to come back or through any, you know, not budget, but audit reviews or anything like that, or any changes to any of the bonds, that get, you know, as long as it gets updated
Yeah.
into the living document, then I think we're
Correct.
fine. I just would like to see that when it gets published on the website, it's easy to find.
Yes, okay.
So, that's all.
Thank you. Just real quick to go back to that other item, the email I told you about, if you don't have a version of it, the one that came from the supervisor's office, did you ever see that? I think that was before you
No.
were.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll share that with you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So I think you have your guidance.
Yes, thank
All
you
right.
very much.
Thank you.
Good job.
Number 14, ratify a public works agreement to TSR Construction and Inspection for concrete at Wrangell Park in the amount of $92,000 with a contingency of $9,200 for a total of contract amount of $101,200. And Mr. Valdivia.
Mr. Valdivia is the staff reporter?
Yeah, let's let him make his comments first. Are you,
His is probably closer to the electrical one, which is the next one, 15.
oh, okay.
But I'll
Sorry
go
about that. Wait till
quick
15.
and, Mayor and Council, to give you some updates and talk about Wrangell Park for the next few items. This first item before us is the contract for us to do the concrete. And in this process, we began to reach out to contractors. We received bids for the contract for different individual companies to come and pour the concrete for us. We had a couple lined up, but what we started to encounter was some delays in some of the being able to pour the concrete in a timely manner so that we could do other stuff in the project. During that process, TSR came to us and said that they had a cancellation and had some concrete that was readily available. So we went forward with them. The concrete is poured. It was poured last week at the park. And so that's why we want to do a ratification for this Public Works agreement. This allowed us to move forward on a couple of other items at the park and keep things moving in a timely manner rather than waiting for another 2 weeks from now to get the concrete poured and ready to go. This contract is for a total of $101,200. It does allow for a 10% contingency just in case something else comes up. And we're moving forward with TSR. This does include us being able to address some of the things we came before you in March and January, talking about a basketball court, relocating it, and then some of the new concrete, some sidewalks, some ADA access to some picnic benches, benches for the ball field, and cleaning up a lot of fun things at the park. So a lot of great stuff happening over there, a lot of good work going on, and that's what this contract's for. If you have any questions about that TSR's contract, love to answer those at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Story. Do we have any public comments on this item?
None here. Any public comments, Olivia?
There are no callers on the line.
Thank you.
Okay, any discussion from council, or I'll entertain a motion?
Mayor, I'll make a motion to ratify a public works agreement for concrete installation at Wrangell Park in an amount not to exceed $92,000 with a 10% contingency of $9,200 for a not to exceed contract amount of $101,200 with TSR Construction and Inspection.
I'll second that. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Councilmember Santos?
Aye.
Councilmember Finn?
Yes.
Mayor White?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Item 15, Mr. Valdivia, your comment that you made during general comments is you wanted to know what our backup plan was? Yes. Did you want to add any more to that? Because I'd like Mr. Story to include that in his report, unless you had other comments.
Wanted to know what the contingency plan is if we don't get Edison Power there.
Got it. Okay, Mr. Story, you're up.
All right. So item 15 is the award of an installation agreement with Open Apps for an online automated control system for sports field lights and electrical upgrades at Rangel Park in an amount not to exceed $46,750. So for some of the updates that we're doing, we are going to include at Rangel the same system that we have currently operating at our sports park and over at Stewart Park, which is an application and control system that's operated by Open Apps that allows the user to come in and turn the lights on automatically without a staff person having to be there to flip a switch or us having to give keys to everybody in the community who wants to use the field for lights. And so we're asking to include that system. As part of the installation of that control system, we're taking this opportunity to upgrade some of the extremely outdated and older systems that we have there at the park. So we're getting a new meter and a new panel, electrical panel that's getting put into a brand new electrical enclosure. That'll be right up against the fence where the old blue building was at one time. So this company is going to come in, install all those items. Not included in this is something that's separate, and that's what Mr. Valdivia's question is in regards, and that's to Edison. And so Edison is in charge of bringing power to that pole and to that meter. We've reached out to Edison. We've turned in our paperwork to them to get that started. So we are at their mercy right now in their timeline. We are contacting them on a very regular basis. We've had some struggles in the past trying to get them to respond quickly to things, but we were successful in getting electrical replaced over at Stewart Park prior to Cherry Festival, and we can continue to be extremely diligent, borderline annoying with Edison to make sure that they hear us and understand the importance of that. So we do have a few weeks. I'm not in full panic mode yet, but we are calling them several times a week to keep pushing them and get us on the schedule and making sure we have everything on there. So the backup plan would be is we would have to talk to an electrician. We have Embray that's been doing some work for us, Embray Electric from town here, who's done some things for us at that park already. And we would have to come up with maybe a generator or something that would be able to power the restrooms and the snack bar. I know one of the big concerns is the field lights. And so we can begin to explore that as a backup just in case. If we need to do that, it's not a problem. We can reach out to them, see what those possibilities are, and if that's an option, if Edison's unable to meet that timeline.
Thank you. Mr. Valdivia, did you get your question answered?
I already told Doug that I would hook it up.
He's an electrician, right, so.
So this, this meeting and this evening will go down as the meeting about the letter, so let me suggest another letter. If you could write a letter to Southern California Edison explaining to them our timeline and ask them to please find a way to get what we need done and have it come from me, I'd be happy to sign it and send it off.
I'd appreciate that.
Okay.
No problem. We'll work on that. Thank you.
I actually have a meeting with Edison tomorrow, so if we could have that letter, no pressure.
Okay, I will.
If we could have that
I will
letter.
approve this and I will head back to my office apparently.
Okay, and I will sign it on my way to RCTC meeting in the morning. Okay.
Can I,
Yes,
and
Mr.
also
Sanders.
I could address it to Elaine, I mean, on that? Okay,
Okay.
good.
And we
And you could mention my name too, if you want.
And we still need a motion on this item, correct?
Yes, for the installation agreement.
Okay,
I'll make a motion to approve an installation agreement in the amount not to exceed $46,750 with Open Apps Lights on Sites, Inc. for an online automated control system for sports field lights and electrical upgrade at Rangel Park. I think this is a great idea, by the way.
I'll second.
roll call, please.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Councilmember Santos?
Aye.
Councilmember Finn?
Yes.
Mayor White?
Yes. Item 16, approve a maintenance service agreement in the amount not to exceed $49,100 with UC Fence for ball field fence improvements at Rangel Park.
All right.
Mr. Story.
We started doing some repairs to some of the fencing at the park, and we've gotten some installed already. When we began to do the leveling of the field, one of the issues we came across was a pretty significant safety concern for us. When we scraped away a lot of the dirt, we began to expose the bottom of the outfield fence, and just where parts had rusted away, things were really jagged. When that new level came in, we put a DG warning track around the back of it, and because we had removed some of that soil, it just didn't line up right with the fence. And so we brought the fence contractor back in and asked, hey, we need to address these safety concerns, and some of these things that we thought were kind of pretty important before we reopen this park fully. And so we asked UC Fence to give us an additional quote. They have done some work for us. That didn't pass the 25,000 threshold. And so now once we add this new work to replace that outfield fence, it definitely will. And so we're coming to you to ask for approval to allow us to do that work. When we went through this process with our staff and we had the fence people come out, we were definitely concerned about just the condition of the bottom portion of that outfield fence and felt that it was the best thing for us just to replace that portion altogether. So that's what we're coming in here today to recommend that you guys approve a maintenance services agreement in an amount not to exceed that $49,100 for the ball field fence maintenance, removal, replacement, and installation of some new fencing at Rangel Park. And this $49,100 also includes a wrought iron portion of the fence that's going to go around the playground as well. So this will tackle the ball field and then also an area around the playground that's going to be installed.
Thank you, Mr. Melman. Do we have any public comments on this item?
Olivia, any public comment?
There are no callers on the line.
No comment.
Okay. At this point, I will make a motion to approve a maintenance service agreement in an amount not to exceed $49,100 for the ball field fence maintenance, removal, replacement, and installation of new fencing at Rangel Park.
I'll second that.
Councilmember Lara?
Mr. Lara, you had some comments.
Before I give you my vote, I just want to say, I did drive by and around Rangel Park, and I can see where you're talking about the base of the fence in a number of areas needs work. But that ball field looks amazing. So, and staff was putting in sprinklers in the playground area. So just wanted to commend staff and the work that they've done, all the work that they've done in such a short amount of time. So thank you, Mr. Story, for that. It's looking great. I can't wait to see when it's done. And yes.
Okay. Councilmember Santos?
Aye.
Councilmember Fan?
Yes.
Mayor White?
Yes, before I say my yes, when is the tournament starting?
July 8th, 9th, and 10th. The first night's gonna need lights.
Okay, and are we going to have an opening of the park before then? A grand opening?
Yeah, we're going to be working on that right up until that date. But I was speaking with Elizabeth this morning and trying to put together a date for a ribbon cutting. We'll definitely have a ceremony to have you guys, everyone come out there.
Okay,
absolutely,
great.
we will be doing that.
Thank you, and I
we'll
did
put it on your
already
calendars.
Officially, I already gave you my yes.
Oh, thank you,
Mr. Mel. Okay. Item number 17, authorize the First Amendment to the Chief of Police Employment Agreement. Staff report by Carrie Mendoza.
Actually, Mayor, I'm going to give the staff report.
Okay.
So it is my pleasure to bring this First Amendment to the Chief of Police Employment Agreement. Back in 2016, I negotiated his original contract. I'm very proud to say that I am able to negotiate his First Amendment to that contract. There are 3 changes that I am proposing. The first is a 10% increase in his base salary, and that is based on the Ralph Anderson class and compensation study that the city has been working on for over the last year, with an effective date of January 7th. So his base gross annual salary would move from $230,006.40 to $253,863.96. The second proposed change is the city would contribute 5% or $1,057.76 per month to the chief's individual 457B deferred compensation account. Previously, there was no contribution. And let me explain why those 2 items I'm proposing. The class and comp showed a 14.6% under pay for police chiefs compared to our chief in the region. The cities that were chosen previously between the city council and the POA. So instead of increasing the chief's salary by 14.6 or 15%, it is a cost savings if we put some of that into his deferred comp. The chief agreed to that, and so therefore that compensation package, if you will, is split between the 2 items. And then the third proposal is to increase the chief's termination by city for convenience from 6 months to 12 months, so 365 days. And I have it on good authority that the chief never wants to exercise that clause in his amendment, and I agree. And so with that, the existing contract provides for an annual fully loaded fiscal impact of $431,069. And I do want to note that safety employees, PERS is more costly to the city than civilian. And so when you see that number, it is because of PERS. The First Amendment will result in an annual fully loaded fiscal impact of $482,116, which is an increase of $51,047, and the projected increase for the remainder of the current fiscal year is approximately $25,520, and I am requesting that City Council approve the First Amendment to the Chief of Police Employment Agreement and authorize the mayor to execute that agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gibbs. Do we have any comments?
No comment here. Any calls, Olivia?
No, there are no callers on the line.
Okay, thank you. No calls.
So I have one quick question. Why January 7th? What's the significance of that?
January 7th is the date that the Police Officers Association and the city agreed on their MOU and the increases in that, as well as the Police Managers Association. So everybody underneath the chief received raises January 7th. And in pay equity, the recommendation is to do that likewise with the chief of police. In addition, it's my understanding that he has been in talks with the former city manager and that this was a proposal that had been coming and is now here.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions, comments from council?
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Is the class and comp study available, is the class and comp study available to the public as a public records request? Or is that considered in-house proprietary or anything like that?
It will be public once we have the final MOU.
Okay.
We still have an outstanding labor group.
Okay, so just my question, or the reason for it is if we're making any changes and we're citing this report that the public, when will the public have access to that?
Understand.
So my understanding is when the time comes that we are settling with the remaining labor group, that we then vote and approve on the new pay range, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And at that point, the comp and class study does become a public document, correct?
Yes, it can.
I mean,
be.
it is public now, isn't it, technically? Yes.
The January version is it? Yes, I'm
Okay.
sorry. That was confusing.
Okay, no, okay, so between all that, that answered my question,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay. Any other comments, questions?
If I
Sure, go ahead, Mr. Sam.
No, I don't have a comment.
Would
but,
you like to
if
make a
there's no,
motion?
I like to do a motion.
Go for it.
Okay. Like to do a motion and approve and authorize the mayor to execute the First Amendment to the Chief of Police Employment Agreement.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Councilmember Laura?
Yes.
Councilmember Santos?
Yes.
Councilmember Finn?
Yes.
Mayor White?
Yes.
Motion passes.
And we do or do not have legislative updates and discussion? Thank you, Chief. So you're here till retirement, correct? Okay. 20 years? Yeah?
He made us give him a round of applause.
Okay.
Laurel and a hearty handshake.
Legislative updates and discussion, do we have any?
Just very briefly, I wanted to respond to Councilmember Fenn's inquiry about the VMT bill from the last meeting. And that bill is still moving. However, it was pretty significantly gutted. It's SB 1410 amended, and then it is now, it's still on the floor, but it was referred back to a committee. And so I've got some information I can share with you if you'd like any specifics on it. either tonight or later on. Okay.
Later on's fine.
And then we have 3 bills that have been brought to our attention through RCTC. AB 1778, AB 2237, and AB 2438. And all of these bills are transportation related, and each of them would have some sort of significant effect on the ability for agencies like RCTC and others to get transportation projects done. So what we're going to do is bring back a discussion item at the next meeting and look for some direction from council on opposing these bills. So we'll have something for you at that meeting.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the economic development update.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. No report for you tonight. We're just getting ready for tomorrow evening's EDC meeting, which starts at 4 o'clock. Looking forward to it.
Okay, thank you. What time's the Water District meeting tomorrow?
It's at 6.
At 6,
We should
okay.
have plenty of time.
All right. All right, now we'll move on to City Treasurer report.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I have no report. Our meeting is next Monday, and I'll have a report for our next council meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. City Clerk report.
No report this evening, Mr. Mayor.
City Attorney report.
Nothing this evening, Your Honor.
City Manager report.
I just want to quickly point out that there is an update on park capital improvement projects in your packet. I won't go through that, but we will have a Public Works update similar to this in the next meeting. The next meeting, we do have a public hearing on adopting your fiscal year 23 budget. And it's a lengthy agenda. I just want to prepare you for it. And then tomorrow night is the water meeting. If you can attend, it's at 6 o'clock. There is also a Zoom link as well.
And at the Water District meeting, they're going to present their master plan, correct?
Correct, their draft
Master
yeah.
plan.
Yeah.
And just so the public knows, we are not going to have a meeting the first week in July because it falls on the 4th of July, correct?
No, the
Close
first meeting
enough.
in July is July 5th, but it was previously determined, council voted on
Okay.
to go dark July 5th.
Okay. Any future agenda items from council?
Mayor?
Sure, Mr. Finn.
Do we have any updates from staff on the conversation about closing Veely? It was brought to us, and I think that council had recommended that we ask for more information on, am I remembering this correctly, or am I off in left field?
Yeah, I think this would be under the city manager report. You may not have known, but at the time, we asked staff to come back with a little more information on that. And since Mr. Finn seems to have the better memory, if you could get with him and help refresh
Sure.
that project.
This is south of 6th Street, I'm assuming?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, he has the better memory because he's the youngest up here. All right.
That's all I had.
Council reports. I'll start with the mayor. I have no reports tonight. Mr. Lawrence, you're up next.
Oh, that means I have more time for my report.
That's right.
I have just one question. Who's that guy in the end? I have nothing to report.
Okay. Mr. Santos.
I'd just like to congratulate all the employees on the appreciation day on that. I heard that I didn't make it, and I heard that's the first time I missed it, and I heard that that's a good turnout, and I really appreciate that. As I said, I love employees. The stuff and everything, and I didn't realize that we got more 15 years in the service on that. Keep it up, and of course the Cherry Festival was excellent. Mayor, you look good, man. That's all. Thank you.
Mr. Finn, top that.
I think I might. I had a blast at the Cherry Festival parade. I was hooting and hollering. And I did appreciate attending the employee appreciation lunch. That was well attended, and we have a happy staff, is what it looks like, and that was a pleasure to be a part of that. I did attend the Pass area EDA, the Economic Development Association. They changed their name, and I don't think I wrote it down correctly.
Alliance.
Just to highlight, Mayor talked about that a bit, but just to highlight, to add a couple of things to it. In the Planning Department report, they talked about there's a potential for 40,000 homes in Riverside County, new homes. Flood control talked about the burn scars and the hills are healing. They're about 25%. And I think another year or two, they'll be about 50%. So that is a good sign. There was talk that money was being allocated to the Danny Thomas Ranch for sewer connection to Ucaipa Valley Water District, a traffic light going in San Timoteo and Redlands Boulevard down in the canyon. And it was also reported that the Pass area is the 5th fastest growing area in the United States. I also attended the Transportation Now committee meeting where we had Mr. Mickey Valdivia give an update on the I-10 bypass. There's a lot of work that needs to be done there, but it looks like it's gaining the attention of other entities within Riverside County and maybe even on a federal level as well. And then our next presentation for the Transportation Now will be given by staff, perhaps either by Ms. Gibbs or Mr. Hart, in reference to traffic studies and how that is understood, done, and how it can impact public transportation as well. And then last thing to report on, we're going to have an upcoming meeting with Mr. Martinez and I and staff on our land use mitigation. We were given an assignment by staff, which I thoroughly support on this, is we were given a copy of the Good Neighbor Policy for logistics and warehouse distribution uses of the county, and we are going to look to see if that's a potential if we want to do the same within the city. So we went through that, at least I've gone through that so far in detail, and that's part of my reason and recommendations with that letter as well. So there's a little bit of history back behind that. So that's everything for me tonight.
All right, thank you. At this time, I'll adjourn the meeting at 7:39.